Hello guys, and welcome back to the 2023-24 SDPN NHL season previews. Next up, we have the Vancouver Canucks, who are hoping to take bigger steps this next season after a couple of really disappointing seasons. Can they, in that weird Pacific, get back to the playoffs? Well, we're going to find that out today, dissecting all their offseason to see what's next for Vancouver. But before we get to the preview, let's first talk about today's sponsor, Sports Interaction. Get in on the action and make your bet with Sports Interaction. The MLB season winding to a close, Blue Jays still in the thick of it. You can bet before the game or live and play with all your favorite teams. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN or download the app to get started. 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Now, to give the Vancouver Canucks credit, even though they're looking like probably the most mediocre team in the league, they have gone out and made some big offseason additions and combined that with the trade deadline deals they made, and Vancouver's looking a lot different for this next year. And yeah, I know I just gave the Canucks credit. It's a different timeline, okay? Don't question it. But let's talk about those offseason additions and how much this roster has changed. First up, we have a forward addition here in Teddy Bluchers, who was acquired in free agency and formerly of the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Vegas Golden Knights as a third-line defensive center, could play penalty kill time. That's kind of what the Canucks needed, just a little bit. And even though not much offense will come of it, still for Vancouver, it's a pretty solid addition up the middle. Then you have by far the biggest overhaul out of any part of this roster, and it's the defense. Now, for Vancouver, if you're going to overhaul anything, might as well be that. But when we look at it, there's some big changes here. They got Ian Cole in free agency as more likely a middle pairing guy. Probably should be more of a bottom pairing guy, but we'll see about that. As a defensive guy, I mean, still solid point production and pretty effective in his role. But really, the big one for me is Carson Soucy, who has tremendous size, but really great athleticism and IQ on the defensive position. Solid puck mover too. And to me, this might be the biggest part of the Canucks offseason. The points don't pop out at you, but I could see a situation where he plays alongside Quinn Hughes and is perfect in that pair. To me, that's exactly the offseason addition they needed, and it's a quiet one for sure, but one that wins you a lot more games. And for the Canucks, that defense was brutal. Soucy would provide stability alongside Cole that didn't have a lot of. Now on to the subtractions. You got Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who of course they bought out. He goes to the Florida Panthers. Won't be a big loss for how he played in Vancouver, especially this last year. You also lose Ethan Bear, unfortunately, with how many injury issues he's had. It's tough to see, but he's gone from Edmonton to Carolina to Vancouver. Played okay with the Canucks, but obviously not enough to really justify a new contract. Then you also have Travis Dermott, who goes away. Some more defensive depth lost. He goes onto the Arizona Coyotes, but just like Bear, I mean, he played 11 games. It's not going to be a big loss for them. They'll be fine. That defense, though, is still massively improved. Now let's go on to the three players to watch for this Canucks team, and three players that to me could really make the difference this next year. The first one for me is Anthony Beauvillier, who of course they acquired in the Bo Horvat trade and was brilliant alongside Elias Pettersson on that second half of the season for Vancouver. In 33 games, got 9 goals, 11 assists, 20 points. Kind of petered out in the last couple of weeks, but was at a point around a point per game with Vancouver and was looking brilliant there. He'll likely still be in the same position, likely still on that first line left wing. In a full season, if he's able to put around still that same point production, 20 points in 33 games for a full season, that is humongous for the Canucks and a great complementary winger for Pettersson that is really desperately needed. But if he struggles a bit more like he did with the Islanders, then that's a huge pitfall for them. Now on to my second player to watch for this Canucks team, and it comes on the defense, and we already talked about Carson Soucy. This next D could be really interesting this next year though for the Canucks, and that is Filip Hronek, who was, I guess, kind of a trade acquisition for them last year, and for the Canucks didn't play for a while and only played at the end of the season, playing 4 games, getting 1 assist for 1 point. Filip Hronek, though, is in a fascinating position. Will likely be on that middle pair maybe with Ian Cole. We'll see what happens there. But offensively, has a ton of potential with Vancouver. We could see him on the power play, perhaps. There's a few gaps here defensively, which we'll see if he's able to iron out with Vancouver. Still, though, he looked pretty good in the 4 games he played. So if that's able to transition over, not just with Soucy and Cole, but if Hronek's able to have a full season at a great level, then that Canucks defense looks so much better for the future. Now let's go on to my third player to watch for the Canucks this season, and this one is a very underrated pick in my opinion, but that is Arturs Silovs, who has burst onto the scene for the Canucks in so many ways. A 6th rounder back in 2019, but a 6'4", 216-pound Latvian stud, and over the past couple of years has shown some great things in the Canucks system. This last year, a 909 save percentage in 44 AHL games, and a 908 save percentage in 5 NHL games. He got a 921 save percentage in the World Championships for Latvia in 10 games. He was beautiful beautiful and brilliant there as the starter. And to me, he's a pretty underrated goalie bet this next year. Backing up Demko could give him a lot more rest than he's gotten in the past. Now let's go through and grade those forwards, defense, and goaltending. And with how much the defense has improved, I think this is a pretty balanced team. No part of the roster, I think, is overwhelmingly good, but it'll be really interesting to see how all of it fuses together this next year. We start with the forward group, which has, of course, the standouts like Elias Pettersson, a top center in this league, Kuzmenko, who's done great things, JT Miller can still put it up offensively, and I feel like there is some weaknesses on that middle six, perhaps. Ilya Mikheyev on the second line isn't ideal. Same thing with like Phil DiGiuseppe right now being a third liner. We'll see if that ends up sticking. But as of right now, I think for the Canucks, there's a little bit of a lack of depth, and I feel like on that top six, especially maybe on that left side, it's not amazing. I give the forward group a B+. It's still going to be one of the better ones because of the superstars they have, especially Elias Pettersson, but we'll see how much is able to translate throughout the year. Now on to that defense, which is looking a lot better than it used to. It's still not amazing, but that top four looks at least okay. It looks competent, with Quinn Hughes and Susie likely being a pretty good pair. Roenick on that top four is nice. Ian Cole as a middle D is going to be an interesting experiment. We'll see if that actually ends up happening. Christian Wolanin has been pretty underrated for the Canucks in his time there. At least this last year he was good. And Tyler Myers, I mean, I don't love him, but in a bottom pair, I mean, I think that could absolutely work if he's sheltered a little bit more. Overall, the defensive additions look nice. They look solid, and hopefully will bolster it just a bit. I give it a B-. I can't believe I am rating the Canucks defense this well, but it's probably deserved. And then we go into the goaltending, which with how well Artur Silovs might do as a backup, I think it really helps Thatcher Demko as well. Coming off that injury-riddled season we saw last season, hopefully he's back 100%. If he is, that makes this Canucks goaltending so much better. To me, this is actually one of the most underrated parts of the roster. If Demko is healthy, I mean, this might be the best part of the roster. I give them an A-, and hopefully we see Demko carry Vancouver a little bit this next year. But that leads me on to my biggest question mark for this Canucks team, and that is Thatcher Demko. To me, if the Canucks are going to make the playoffs, Thatcher Demko not even has to have a good season, not even has to be solid. He has to have his best season. Of course, even with the defense being improved, to me, I think in that Pacific Division, they're right there in the middle. They're going to be competing with teams like Calgary. They're going to be competing with teams like LA for those playoff spots, and especially with how tight the Central is too in that middle. Those wildcard spots aren't going to come easily. And to me with Vancouver, that goaltending needs to be a serious strength. Demko needs to be 100% healthy, and they need to be at a great level. I think Silovs can absolutely be that. If Demko's healthy, I think he can be that too. But to me, I think there's a chance that he is top 3 in the Vezina this next year if healthy. If he is, that makes Vancouver's odds so much better. Now on to the standings predictions and what we might see. I see Demko doing solidly, maybe not at that Vezina level though, and that kind of holding Vancouver back just a little bit. I see them getting 93 to 95 points and being 5th in the Pacific Division. Again, fighting for those playoff spots, hunting for them. But they're a team that I think alongside Nashville, Seattle, hunting for those wildcard spots might kind of get lost in the fray at the end. Still a lot closer than they were last year, but maybe just outside. Though that second wildcard spot might be what they capture if that goaltending holds. Let us know though, is this Canucks team an actual playoff team in 2024? Let us know all your thoughts down below and all your predictions as well. Of course, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell to the SDPN so you don't miss any videos or any season previews. 32 teams in 32 days, and we're almost done, folks. Thank you so much for all the support and appreciate it so much. Hopefully you have a fantastic day. Drink some water, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.